Some of these soldiers are people that have fought hard, long. You know, we teach them how to be great fighters, and then when they fight, sometimes they get really treated very unfairly.
President Trump is reportedly considering possible pardons for some servicemen accused of war crimes. The New York Times first reported he asked the Justice Department for paperwork in several high-profile cases. Let's discuss with retired Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Duff and senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Charles Cully Stimson, who has served in the JAG Corps, not speaking on behalf of the military tonight, but you certainly have relevant experience. So thank you both for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so there are a number of cases going on out there, and we don't know exactly what the president's considering or where he's going. But, Cully, it's clear if he allows these trials to play out, the military system is different than the civilian court system.
That's right. I mean, the military that the Gunny and I served in for 50 years plus exists to enforce good order and discipline. It's not like the civilian criminal justice system. The military justice system exists to enforce good order and discipline, and it sends a message not only to the accused person, but everyone else in the military as well. And so commanding officers will send people to court-martials if they have probable cause to believe that somebody committed a crime. And then it's up to the military justice system, which is a very fair system, to look on a case-by-case situation, have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, just like the civilian world, and then decide whether or not the person's guilty or not guilty.
And so from what we know, and we don't know which specific cases, he has mentioned a couple of things, but from what we understand, these haven't gone to trial yet. So former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chair Martin Dempsey tweeted this: absent evidence of innocence or injustice, the wholesale pardon of U.S. service members accused of war crimes signals our troops and allies that we don't take the law of armed conflict seriously. Bad message, bad precedent, abdication of moral responsibility, risk to us. And he hashtagged it leadership. So, Jessie, do you think that it's better to allow these things to play out before the president gets involved?
Well, several of the pardons that are being granted and have been granted are due to prosecutorial misconduct. Two cases in which they have been pardoned is when the prosecutors failed to disclose evidence that actually showed DNA that would have exonerated both men. And in that case, you have to wonder, when there's prosecutorial misconduct, of course you have to have leniency in a pardon. And I don't think this sets a bad precedence. The military court-martial system has almost 100% prosecution rate. That means that they're always almost guilty before proven innocent. I sat in a court-martial for one of my Marines accused of murder, and it was the most horrific thing to watch because nobody wanted to believe his innocence but me. And we found a Marine that was able to testify on his behalf. Yes, there were Marines there that testified against him. Why? Because it covered them. It made sure that they were not held accountable. And there are cases where there are people that will dishonor their own oath to save their own skin. And when we don't get pardons at the rate that these civilians do, what does it say? That we're always guilty and we got to go rot in jail. And we are being held to a very hard standard when you're going into combat that is not like Main Street. When you're looking at the crimes that have been committed, these are not what you would normally expect walking down Pennsylvania Avenue like I do every day. These are situations where men have had to make very split-second decisions and have often watched their own men killed by the hands of the people they're accused of attacking.
Colin, let me ask you, what is the difference between civilian courts versus military when it comes to things like exculpatory evidence that Jessie mentioned?
The same. I mean, the Brady against Maryland, which is the Supreme Court standard, says that the prosecution has to turn over anything that's potentially exculpatory. Same rules apply in the military as a civilian system. I've worked in both. I'm sorry to hear about the case that the Gunny talks about, because my experience is much different, having sat as a judge for 5 years in the military and been a defense attorney and a prosecutor in the military and outside. You do the best you can to tee up a case, whether you're in the civilian system or military system. The prosecutors have the same rules in the military as they do in the civilian system. There are bad prosecutors in both systems, but most are good. And there are bad defense attorneys in both systems, but most are really good. And so the president's pardon power is absolute. It's in the Constitution. He can pardon somebody before they're charged, when they're charged, after they're dead. I think you have to look at these cases on a case-by-case basis. Let the system play out. If you're convicted in the military court-martial, you get automatic rights to appeal. If there's exoneration evidence, if there's stuff like DNA that exculpates somebody, then that should work itself, weigh it out. If it slips through the cracks and doesn't happen that way, then the president has the absolute ability to reach down and pardon somebody or commute their sentence. Now, to the Gunny's point, if there is a miscarriage of justice, then the president should reach out and touch somebody and exonerate.
All right, quick final word.
Well, often we have seen that there's been a misrepresentation by the media itself. The New York Times article basically prosecuted Chief Gallagher and left out much evidence that we know is there, such as a videotape, such as other evidence, such as the troops that were complaining about him have been people that he had reprimanded. And the public opinion has been horrible towards these military members. And I would like to see that the public stands behind them, besides the fact that they hate the president so much that they want to see the troops go down.
All right, much to consider as these things await trial now. Thank you both for coming in, offering your expertise.